Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So, 1 week to go for Netflix Avatar. They posted a small clip just over the last couple of minutes. Basically, it's just a slightly extended out clip of the Bumi versus Aang fight. We've seen, I think, the main pieces of this quite a bit. You know, Bumi attacking, Aang backflipping over the boulder. There's the 1 more week to go. But then we connect it with the Bumi blocking the boulder coming towards him. And then we see a little bit kind of afterwards as Bumi kind of attacks back. So not too much to really say there on that one in terms of like just the footage itself. But obviously the focus is more that today is kind of premiere day, where they're having the kind of red carpet event in LA. And people, including other fans, are going to get to see the first episode today. So I'm assuming we'll see some sort of initial impressions or reviews at some point later on today. Now, I am expecting it to be quite a bit later on because, of course, I think like the red carpet and the premiere stuff is at like it's evening time, Pacific time, which is really late for me. It's like right in the middle of the morning. For me, so I won't be able to cover that stuff obviously today. That'll have to be probably tomorrow's video where I maybe cover that stuff, depending on how much stuff actually comes out. But just be aware of that if you are maybe wanting to avoid potentially spoilers, or you don't maybe want to hear initial impressions on the show. Just be aware that there'll be some stuff, I'm guessing, out there after tonight, and that's the main thing to say there. Otherwise, we are continuing to see various little bits of promo. So you can see here on Reddit, people have been finding on Netflix itself, depending on what region you're in, various different kind of thumbnail, background kind of posters that they're using on Netflix itself. So here's a nice little shot of all of Team Avatar in the forest. Here's a nice shot of Ozai holding 2 fireballs. A kind of edited together shot here, including the main cast, but also Azula there as well. There's a boy in the iceberg shot here that looks pretty good. I think we've seen this image of Aang before, maybe. Just maybe edited slightly differently. And then probably the big one here is this very clear Kyoshi image. So we've seen Kyoshi 3 times now, each of them clearer than the last. Also, interestingly, her getting closer to the camera each time, it seems like, but just worth mentioning that. So really cool to see this, like super, super up close, and just highlighting that, like, it's right here. The show is right here. The fact that we're seeing so much kind of stuff happening, even on the very page the show is going to be on, is very, very telling. Final thing is this one. Someone found one that's very interesting because it of course shows Azula with lightning, highlighting that I guess we are going to get to see her use lightning at some point in the season. How significant is it going to be, or is it just going to be literally, hey, here's lightning, she uses lightning, let's go. So I don't think it was ever really in doubt that we were going to see Azula use lightning. I think it's just a lot of confusion over the fact that Azula is more heavily involved in book 1 just leads to a lot of confusion, and so everything is a this has been confirmed type situation, when in a lot of cases was it really in doubt? Not really, but cool stuff there. And also the burning map I think is very fitting for this kind of Fire Nation shot also. And then yeah, also note 12 is the age rating here for the show. Which I think lines up with pretty much what we know, where I guess in live action they're going to be able to do a little bit more maybe than the animation was able to do. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe quite a lot of that ultimately is because of the Air Nomad genocide scene at the start. But we will see what it is actually like overall. And then those final thoughts is just obviously there are going to be, but like I said before, some reviews, initial impressions, I guess, coming out after tonight. And I've seen some people be quite, like, anxious, worried that, like, they need these reviews, these impressions to be good, to kind of justify their own excitement with the show or something like that. And I'm kind of like, I'm always going to be like, look, I'm going to wait to see for myself what it's like, to judge it then. I don't need the reviews to be good, because a lot of the times, it's just a big issue. Like any new movie that comes out that's hyped and people start going crazy over the Rotten Tomatoes score and all this sort of stuff, it's just like a little bit like, okay, come on, let's just judge ourselves and see what happens here. I think people are just a little bit more anxious because even though things have mostly been positive over the course of the whole marketing campaign in the build up to the show, there was the couple of day period when some of the interview questions were responses were taken in the wrong way, and people jumped to assume quite a lot about them, and there was some heavy negative opinion going out there. But it also needs to be noted that only did last like 3 or 4 days, and the show has gotten back on track, and I don't think you've seen that kind of negative surge since then. I think people are maybe just a bit worried that what if the stuff that we aren't seeing in the marketing, that they're not showing us, what if the final show is different than maybe it comes across here? What then? What if maybe those concerns that a lot of people had from interview comments, what if they're true? And that's just something that we have to deal with if it turns out to be the case, because we have to see it for ourselves first. That's the big thing that I think everyone should be saying to themselves, regardless of if you're interested in seeing early reviews or not, is your own opinion is the key kind of thing, ultimately. So that's the Netflix stuff for today. Obviously, there'll be stuff to cover tomorrow, I'm guessing, but we move into the Netflix piece of news, and it's actually quite significant, or it could be significant, and that is the reveal for the first time here of a new Avatar: The Last Airbender video game. Now, there are barely any details about this out there. There is no imagery, there's no video, there's no title associated with this. It is literally just a company announced that they are working on an Avatar game, and they told us the genre of game it's going to be. That's it. This Variety article doesn't even have most of the actual information, so I'll just play for you where it was actually announced. So this is a Maximum Entertainment's 2024 roadmap walkthrough. They are a video game publisher and or developer. I forget the exact details, but here's the announcement.
And finally, we are thrilled to announce that we have entered into a partnership with Paramount Consumer Products to develop a competitive multiplayer fighting game set in Avatar: The Last Airbender universe. This competitive fighting game is set to release into early access in 2025. We are thrilled to be bringing this project to life, and we will have so much more to share on this game in the future. And now...
Okay, so that's all there really is with the announcement there. Literally just, like they say, it is a competitive multiplayer fighting game. So that's the genre of game it's going to be. Note the way that they say it is a game set in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, not that, like the article says here, that it's an Avatar: The Last Airbender game. I think the wording is important there, because to me the wording suggests that it actually might be multiple eras, that it's not just Avatar, it very much could include Korra as well. And I think in a game like this, we want that. We want them to have access to everything in the Avatar universe to, get the game across well through the depth of the character roster that we have across multiple eras. That's, I think, what is required. Otherwise, the only other information they gave there was, of course, that early access at some point in 2025. I'm guessing that probably suggests a maybe later in 2025 release. It'd be a little bit weird if early access lasted like an exceptionally long amount of time for the type of game that this is going to be. So that definitely lines up with the Avatar Studios plans in terms of like October 2025 is the release date for the first movie under Avatar Studios. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of tie-in to that in terms of like, what if it releases alongside the movie in October and we have the like older ATLA cast as characters in the game. It'll be interesting to see how exactly that goes overall. So I'll just end with a little bit of speculation here and what I really want out of this game. To me, given that it's a fighting game, the character roster is key, and I think the character roster is going to tell us a lot about the sort of scope, the ambitions of this game. If they only have the basic characters, the highlighted characters here, and maybe like one or two others, like if the roster is literally only maybe just over 10, Obviously, that I think tells us that this is another kind of low budget Avatar game that, might still be good, but they haven't gone in depth, and there's just a big lack of focus. Like, if it is just ATLA focused and it's the really, really obvious stuff, that I think is going to come across a little bit boring, regardless of if I think the mechanics all work out really well. I think what they need to do to make this come across well is utilize the large character roster that we have in Avatar, the multi-generational aspect, and include Korra, all the Korra characters as well, and have a roster that's pretty big. So include the obvious stuff, like your Team Avatar characters, of course, and then the obvious other characters like, Iroh, Ozai, Azula, but also bring in Mei and Ty Lee, more non-bender characters, bring in the Order of the White Lotus as the characters who clearly have distinct styles and could work well as characters in a game like this. Bring in past avatars, characters like Jet, who are going to work well as new characters. And then the Korra roster is really good as well. You've got your obvious Korra characters here, but then the villain roster for Korra is, I think, exceptional in terms of like fighting game character potential, like if there's special moves depending on how they do things. All that stuff works really well. So if the roster is like 30 to 40 characters, like that sounds really good. If it's going to be very small roster, I don't know how I feel about it, but we're probably still a really long time away from finding out that sort of thing. Final thing probably just to talk about is, okay, fighting game. What do we really want from a fighting game? There's not too many different, I suppose, types of fighting games. There's like your Tekkens and Street Fighters, which are like your classic kind of fighting games. That could definitely work, especially if they come up with some unique system to get across like bending really well, or a unique way of doing special attacks. You have your Smash style game, which is similar, but obviously is focused in a different direction. It's about kind of blasting people off the arena rather than just like health bars going down. But then you also have the Naruto kind of Ninja Storm style like arena fighting game, which is similar, but like obviously you have kind of 3D control of your character, but it's still fundamentally a fighting game where your characters have these kind of set move sets, and it works like that. I think Avatar could work with any of them. I again, without knowing what the development scope of the game is really going to be like, is it just a tie-in thing that isn't really important, or is a big amount of effort and kind of budget going into it? It's hard to really say, but I do think an Avatar fighting game could work really well if they make it unique, capture Avatar fans who would want to play it, and like I said, you need the character roster. I don't think it's enough going into like 2025 to just lead your game with, hey, Aang, Zuko, and Katara are in this game. Get hyped. I think you need to use everything, and I hope that as part of the deal, that's why they said Avatar: The Last Airbender Universe, because it maybe is a fighting game that they'll support for a while, and they'll have stuff about the new Avatar content as well coming out. So that's, I think, most of all I want to talk about. I hesitate to speculate too much about the publisher and developer. I think people have mentioned that like they have some fighting game stuff on their kind of roster of games that they've done, or other games that are kind of in development at the moment that will come out before this game. So at the very least, there's somewhat recent fighting game experience, and they've worked on stuff like this before, so I wouldn't be super worried there. It really is just all about, we need to finally get an Avatar game that feels like it has at least a certain level of quality. I do think some of the Avatar fandom does not have in any way, I think, reasonable expectations for games, considering like where Avatar kind of has been. I think people do expect that like you'll wake up one day and like it will be an Avatar game announced to be being made by like the best development studio in the world with the highest budget in the world, and it's just, at the moment, that doesn't seem reasonable at all. So expectation setting for this is important, but obviously we can't have our expectations completely nowhere. Like, we have to have some hope and expectations that it's ambitious to a certain degree. So yeah, make of that what you will, but in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are, of course, on this Avatar fighting video game. Will this finally be, you know, the first good Avatar game since the Legend of Korra game? And then with some of the Netflix stuff, what are your thoughts on the new small clip we got, extending out some of the Boomy stuff and some of the posters here? But I suppose mainly, where are you at when it comes to like these upcoming reviews or impressions that we're going to get? Are you someone who's worried about them? Do you care too much about what the kind of early reviews have to say? What are the kind of, like, in a way, what would red flags about this show be for you? What are you hoping to hear positives about or negatives about, or any opinions on that the marketing stuff hasn't been telling us? I'm eager to know where people are at when it comes to like what they're expecting from these impressions. But yeah, otherwise that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.